All the roll and go. Where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?
Hello, and welcome to Where Am I to Go podcast. Today we are in Laramie, Wyoming, and we are with Carlo and Jessica. We are at the Wyoming State Territorial Prison, which is kind of interesting to me because we have another full-time prison. The big state prison is in Rawlins, Wyoming, and they've got another little prison in Wyoming that was, I don't know what prison it is. We're going to find out today, I'm sure. But this was the very first prison in the territory of Wyoming Territory, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it was built in 1872, and our first convict arrived in 1873.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And welcome to Where Am I to Go podcast. I didn't quite get all the way through before I had my very first question because I'm stumbling along trying to figure out what that prison is in Rawlins. So right now what is some other history with this prison? How many people did they house here? Some of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So the history of the prison and the number of people it housed actually changes over time. So when we get over there, you'll see that the prison's it has three different wings to it.
Okay.
And when they first built it in 1872, all they built was the north cell block. So the north cell block is the original building that they built then. They didn't build the middle wing and the south cell block, which doubled the prison's capacity, until 1889. So basically from 1873 through 1889, 1890, thereabouts, the capacity of the prison would only have been, hold on, math in my head real quick, 42 times 2, 84 people with 2 people per cell.
Really?
Originally, the intent was 1 person per cell, but they just had too many convicts. So they increased it, basically 2 per cell most of the time, to 84 total. Then they doubled that in 89. So eventually it was, 168? Yeah, 168. And of course, there were times when the prison was used as a holding facility too.
Okay.
So a lot of times you'd have people who were waiting to go to jail or who were waiting to be transported to another prison elsewhere. The Nebraska prison, if I remember correctly, and then Detroit?
Detroit, yeah.
Detroit?
Mm-hmm. We had
You're
contracts
talking
with
about
both.
Michigan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had contracts with both prisons to send convicts to them and actually house them there. And have them taken to those spaces. There was something about it being cheaper at one point for us to send them that way.
Well, and I guess the context of that is that, so we started as a territorial prison, which meant we were a federal prison. That was run by a U.S. Marshal who was appointed by the president. And then once we switch over to a state facility in 1890, then we become a state prison. So that's, I think, some of that difference as far as like the prisoner transfers from here to Detroit was more because they were federal prisoners, and they actually tracked the prisoners by state prisoners versus federal prisoners when they were being processed here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I was having a problem with thinking about prisoners getting stuck here and then being told they were going to be sent to Detroit and going, you mean I've got to ride in one of those jail wagons drawn by horse for 2.5 weeks in order to get to this other prison? But I guess that the railroad was already here. It came in 1868, I think I was told.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they would have been able to put them on a railroad car, and then I guess that they could be active participants in a railroad heist if one happened on the way.
You'd imagine?
I'm Butch Cassidy. You guys don't want to rob me, do you?
Yeah, that would have been an interesting story.
Yes, it would have.
But it never happened.
As far as we know, yeah.
But there were plenty of escapes, right? I think the numbers come out to 1 out of about every 4 people who stayed here escaped at one point or another.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, there were a lot of security issues.
I was going to say, I guess if I'm going to prison, this sounds like a good one to go to.
And that was right. It was a mix of things, right? Some of it was administrative. Some of it was, policy. Like I know you were telling me a story the other day about like the guard, the guy who'd already attacked one guard when he was like being taken to a cell, and then they just had one guard taking him to a cell again, and of course he attacked and escaped again.
So they didn't learn from their lessons.
Well, and some, like the guards too, like you could have, I can't remember how many prisoners were being housed here at the time, but there was one guy on duty. So it was the warden was the only person in the prison at the time to monitor, because the other guard got called into town. And so that's another thing where it's like, you didn't have, like, the ratios weren't great for the number of prisoners that they had to the number of guards that they had.
80-to-1 does not seem really good.
No, it's not great. Not ideal.
I can't remember. A week ago, I would have remembered the number of people who were in the prison during that escape. I can't remember right now.
More than it should have been.
Yeah.
Well, and it was probably a little bit harder to catch up with them once they got out of the territory and headed out, 300, 400, 500 miles away.
Yeah, it just depends on where they went. If you think of, you get the word out as far as like who you're looking for, and there was only so many towns you could go to that were only, so big. So.
Well, and it seems to me, just from my recollection of history, a lot of the outlaws became deputized or sheriffs or whatever of different places. I mean, like the Earps or, some of those, they weren't on the right side of the law, but all of a sudden they were U.S. Marshals or whatever the case may be. And I wonder how many escapees were able to get pardons or whatever and live
or just
on the outlaw side of the law.
Well, and even just not escapees, we had quite a few people get pardoned, right? I don't know the exact numbers. I'm not sure if you do, Jessica, but a decent number of people actually received pardons while they were here. I know when you go through our prisoner book, it's really common to see, they only served half their sentence or whatever it may be, and then they received a pardon and were sent off on their way. So that was pretty common practice at the time.
Well, I think it's common practice now too, isn't it? Don't you hear about people getting out of prison 5 years? Well, they got a life sentence and they get out in 8 years on parole, or
and that's the thing. I feel like both of us are more like I know more about the history of this building than I do about like modern day incarceration.
And I don't know. It just seems like you hear about people all the time.
And parole is a little bit different because a pardon was just you were pardoned of the crime. Right, and you were sent out, and at that point you had a gubernatorial letter that basically said, "Congratulations, right? You're out." Parole is still, you're still under that legal sort of umbrella, and you have to, all the requirements that come after that. The people that were pardoned after here were basically sent out the door, and thumbs up, off you go.
We're tired of feeding you or listening to you complain.
Yeah, or it could have been like if it was overcrowding, or if someone was ill and they didn't want to, pay for the medical cost of caring for them. There was one woman who you'll see a picture of over in the north cell block of the prison that she was pardoned because she was pregnant.
That'd be a good reason. And where did they send her to? I mean, when they pardoned him and let him out the door.
Oh, she went back to her family in Denver.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she was completely pardoned of the crime she committed, and she went back to her family in Denver. And unfortunately, she did die in childbirth after she was released from here. But
Wow. Okay. Well, where we are right now is in the Warden House. There are several buildings in this complex or campus or whatever. I don't know what you guys call it. And we're in the warden's house. Then we're going to proceed over to
The prison.
the prison.
Yep.
And then,
From there to the broom factory, and then to the horse barn, I think is kind of our circle.
okay. Now, I guess I'm probably too early to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. We've got a broom factory here. Wyoming does not put brooms on the back of their cars. They put license plates. And I was always told the license plates were made in the state prison. But we made brooms here. Is that because there was a lot of witches?
We don't talk about that here in Wyoming. That's part of our history we keep.
yeah, that's more of an East Coast thing.
That's right. Yeah, it's one of those things that so at that point, one of the folks we haven't talked about is when we became a state prison, they put in basically a new position of the lessee. The lessee was in charge of sort of the business of the prison.
Okay.
And so in 92, our lessee was James Marsh. I can't remember the town from Nebraska he was from. I always forget. But where he came from in Nebraska had a broom factory. And so your job as lessee was to make sure that your convicts had work to do and that the prison was running a good business. That was a huge part of it, right? And so he basically looked at it and said, well, what if we put a factory here? And I know, right, broom factories, that's a thing I'm familiar with. So got the materials, and the convicts built the factory, I believe. And then at that point, from basically 1895, they had a fully functioning factory here on site until it closed in 1903.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they did move the broom making equipment over to Rollins, which is another really interesting part of that history, because they transferred all the equipment and everything over to the Rollins Frontier Prison. So.
That's interesting. Yeah, you get out of prison, and you've got to put down on your resume, I was in prison, and then you put down, what did you do for the last 4 years? I built brooms.
And it's an interestingly skilled bit of labor. We have volunteers that come through and make brooms nowadays, and so I myself have still never made one, but I've watched the process and been taught it a couple times, and it requires a fair amount of skill and time. They were very efficient, right? They were operating on an assembly line, so they were making about 720 a day at the kind of their prime.
Wow.
But it's actually pretty skilled labor getting the broom corn onto it. We'll see the equipment, so we can go into that more when we're over there. But yeah, it requires a decent amount of skill and effort to actually put it together.
Well, I did think I was kind of jumping the gun a bit, but I...
No, you're fine.
This is
your deal.
This rolls with me. If I don't think of it now, I may not think of it later.
Absolutely, no.
Anyway, so tell us about the warden's house, since this is where we're standing.
So the warden's house is an interesting building for several reasons. For me, I really like it because it's a really good example of this prison as a working prison. It was one of the first bits of work that the convicts had to do. So the prison started, our first convict arrived in 1873 in January, and this house was built in 1875. And it was built entirely with convict labor. So the bones of the building that you're looking at, the stonework that you see on the outside, all of that is original convict labor that you're looking at. I know we've had to do some renovations on it over the years and kind of, put it all back together. But the building itself is one of the first kind of instances of convict labor that we have that is visible on site.
So what did they do with the convicts while they were building this and they didn't have the prison built yet?
So the prison was built in 73. So they were, they were staying in the prison at that point, and basically staying there building this house. The warden was, I can't remember, Boswell lived in town, because he was the sheriff in Laramie before this, right?
Well, it would have been the warden and the marshal at that point.
Right.
Because it was federal.
Oh, right, yeah. I'm trying to think, but Boswell was that first warden, right? Yeah. And he would have been, I'm assuming, living in town, because he was, N.K. Boswell was the sheriff in Laramie for several years. And I think that's the position he got promoted from to come out here.
was the first one who lived here.
Was he?
Sure
Okay. Okay, so then Boswell just stayed in town. I didn't know that.
Now, here's another little interesting thought that crossed my mind. So you have the inmates building a house which involves hammers, screwdrivers, saws, drills,
What are you getting
wood,
at?
Where are we going here? Right?
axes, and you've got one warden overseeing 15 guys with
And you
not deadly instruments. I mean, who thinks of a hammer or an axe as something deadly?
No, not at all.
And you wonder why there's escapes.
Well, and there would have been some additional guards as well, but you're right, they definitely would have been probably outnumbered a bit. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of records about the federal operations of the facility. We know significantly more after 1890 when the state took over, because they had the Board of Charities and Reform, and so they were doing annual reports, and so we learned a little bit more about like the nuts and bolts of how the facility operated after 1890, but we don't know as much about how did they manage prisoners in 1875 from the contract that they had with a local brick maker. The answer would be not very well, because that's where most of the people, like they sent a lot of the inmates were sent to a local brickyard, and that was where a lot of them escaped from, because the brickyard proprietor was supposed to provide guards for them, and at some point people would just like kind of walk off the job and wouldn't be able to get them. So that became a problem, and so we know a little bit about those things, but as far as like where was the warden officing out of? How often did the marshal come over? We don't know as much about that, unfortunately. And most of what we do know came from newspaper research done by a woman who actually lived in this house when her husband was the manager of the UW farm station here.
Okay.
And so she did a lot of that. Like, she went to archives and she hand typed out articles that related to the history of the prison. And so we have a great wealth of like primary source articles based on the research that she did. Her name's Elnora Fry, and she also did the prisoner atlas that we have for sale in the store. So she got us a lot of that information, especially from the the 70s and the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I guess I'm going to make another assumption. The food here at the prison was really, really good, so that the prisoners, when they were working at the brick factory, didn't want to not miss the evening meal or the breakfast the next morning. So they came back on their own accord.
You're actually half right. They actually ate decently well here. And the reason why was they wanted them able to work, right?
Okay.
So, and that, of course, this is reporting from the warden, right? I know we have it from several articles in the newspaper, reports of, well, this is what I feed them and this is all the food they get. So we don't have a lot of convicts saying, oh, the food there was great, but I don't think we have a lot of records from convicts themselves at all. But they actually did want to feed them decently well because they wanted them to be healthy enough to work. Now, a whole bunch of beans every night was probably, not what everyone was looking forward to all the time. But it was, decent protein and a fair amount of food. You could have just not about as much as you wanted, but a fair amount of food to keep yourself going.
It's one of those things like whatever you were given, you had to eat type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, the option of riding the range and coming back in hungry and the pot of beans is all you got that night.
That's the thing.
Maybe a little slab of range beef or something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was not so bad to have to be here if they were feeding you good.
Food-wise.
And it would have been, well, I don't know.
I'll
They
leave
may
you
not
to draw
have
that
had
conclusion for
I was
yourself.
going to say, we'll get there, right?
they may not have had any heat in the prison either. I was going to say a warm place to sleep on a cold winter's night might
mean,
not
they-
have been bad either.
Slightly warmer.
They did have a heating system. It just didn't work very well, and it eventually caused a fire in the building.
Other than
But
that.
they did have it.
They caused a fire in
Yeah.
the building.
Yeah. But they did have it.
Well, cool. Okay, well, let's take a look at some of the furnishings and stuff in here.
Yeah, so nothing in here, unfortunately, is original to the time period. It was all supposed to kind of represent the 1890s aesthetic. But we do know that in this building, the south wing was where the warden and if there was a family, they would stay in kind of this side. And this wing over here on the north side was actually originally for guards housing before they had the guards quarters up in the central section of the prison. So it was for like the warden and the guards. If they didn't live in town, they could stay here.
So it's set up kind of like a duplex. You've got living quarters on
And then
both
sort of
ends,
like a
and then you
community
have a combined kitchen and dining area. And, okay, so did the warden's wives, were they the ones that were in charge of cooking for everybody, or did they have servants of some sort, or did they use some of the lady prisoners?
They did have, some of the inmates did cook meals here. I think it just depended on the family and the availability of that. But yeah, they also had an exterior kitchen. From what I understand, I don't think it was like a summer kitchen. I think it was actually like the kitchen was in the basement, and the entrance to it would have been outside.
So they wouldn't have had to, so the families wouldn't have necessarily had contact with the prisoners that were cooking
If
the
they were
meals.
listening.
Because there's
Interesting.
one of the old pictures, didn't there used to be a dugout kind of out front
Yeah,
and
and
an
I think
entrance
that's-
into the basement cellar area?
But that's the hard
Yeah.
part with like that 1870s, 1880s history, because you'll read like in an article and it'll just have like a small note about like, oh, they had the dugout kitchen when they installed it, but you don't really know like how was it used. And so you'll read a note saying, oh yeah, sometimes they had, sometimes the inmates were actually cooking the meals for the family, but we don't have any, it's just kind of like an article or two that we have.
Okay.
Go off of that.
And so did this building sit vacant for a lot of years, or, okay, so how come the furniture in here is not the same as what it was? Oh, go ahead.
Because it was occupied through the 1980s. There were families that lived here.
Oh,
So
really?
when the prison closes permanently in 1903, the UW, the ag station, the ag school took over the site, and so this was one of the buildings that they used to house their staff. So by 1907, the ag school was turning this into a home for their farm manager.
Okay.
And so it became, they added additions, they added patios, they added bathrooms, so this building was occupied by families who worked on the site from 1907 to the 1980s.
Wow. Okay. And what caused the demise of this building? I mean, it really wasn't all that old. You're talking 1873 to 1903. That's only 30 years.
So that was a complex story just because there are multiple factors that go into it. Part of it is actually statehood. So when Wyoming gained statehood in 1890, one of the parts of the Constitution basically states that the university, the mental hospital, and the prison cannot be in the same city. So at that point, they start deciding where all these facilities are going to go. And they actually, this is a part of the story I'm still a little wonky on, so please correct me if I say anything dumb. But my understanding of it is that they decided on Rawlins for the prison pretty early on in statehood. It's in the early 80s, the early 90s. They actually start picking out the site up there and have a plan for it. And they have Laramie picked out for the university pretty quickly as well. I don't know the politics behind that. Jessica, maybe you do. Okay.
Yeah, I just know they were planning to build the prison in Rawlins while they were even adding the addition on to here, I believe.
Well, they were adding the addition on.
Yeah, so it was like they knew they had to expand, and so they were already planning for because it's a significantly larger facility over there. It's it's a totally different animal over at the Rawlins prison. Yeah.
So that's part of it, right? The other part of it is this building actually was falling apart in many ways.
Okay.
I mean, the roof has always been even today, we still have troubles with the roof every once in a while. Mostly the north cell block, if I remember correctly, but still the roof on it was, I don't know what it is about the construction, but the roof was always a problem in the records. It seems like every other year or two they were having issues. And then the stone construction of it, the way it was built, it was falling apart. And even after 30 years, it was in pretty rough shape.
Okay. I wouldn't have thought that. I see a lot of stone structures still standing around out in fields that don't have the roof or anything, but the stone structures are still standing. So. And
it's I know that one of the other parts of it, and this one's just interesting to me, is the heating system actually. So when they built the new wing, they did not upgrade the heating system. And so for a long time, the heating system was not enough, right? It was barely enough when it was just the one wing. Once they built the middle wing and the south cell block, you still had the same boiler. Running and operating the entire heating system for more than double the floor plan. So part of the issues they were running into, especially later on, was that it was just so inadequate. And they actually ran into an issue at the end of the 1890s where it was taking longer to build the prison up in Rawlins.
Okay.
And so finally the warden here actually was sending letters, or I'm sorry, the lessee, because it was Boswell, I think, who sent the letter, was sending letters to the governor and to the board, basically saying, if we're going to keep these people humanely, we need a new heating system. So they actually did build a new boiler in 1898 and start doing some of that work, even as they were still working on building the prison up in Rawlins, because that project was kind of a cursed project in some ways too. It was just something that it took a lot longer than they wanted it to.
Okay. And I'm wondering if the reason that they divided out the towns with, to where you couldn't have all of government centered just in one town, is because they needed the other towns to grow and to move forward. And as long as you had the capital in one and the prison in another and what was the other one? The university in another, each one of those towns would be able to progress and grow versus just being stagnant and all of the workers being consolidated in just one area. Just a thought. I don't know if that's a good thought or a bad thought.
Yeah, I feel like, wasn't there like an official document that kind of talks about that?
That I seem to, and don't, this is one of those things I'm basing off of a very foggy memory, but I seem to remember reading somewhere that economic impact was part of it, right? They did not want, especially in a state as spread out and even back then as small as we were, they wanted to make sure that all of the income and all of the economic impact of governmental sites was not just housed in Cheyenne, right, or housed in Laramie or wherever it might end up. I I do think there's a part of that, but that is a very foggy memory on my part. So,
Well, I would think that in the process of passing the Constitution, when you had your representatives from all different areas of the state, that he's going, well, yeah, if you consolidate everything there, I have nothing.
yeah.
But
Yeah, it's definitely worth more research on our part because we're a part of that history at this site. Yeah.
yeah, would you guys get on
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
so that I can have the answer by the end of the podcast?
If you don't mind taking a seat, we'll be back.
We'll be right back. We just gotta go to our computers. Yeah.
It's amazing how much knowledge there is. You think well, I always say about the time I think I know everything, I realize the truth. Or know anything, I realize
Well,
the truth.
that's why tours are so great because like the questions, it's always like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Let me go figure that out. It's sort of I feel like every time that I give a tour, there's always like a new question that comes up. So it's,
And then what happens? You finally get an area
Well, then
all
I spent-
figured
yeah.
out, and then they transfer you to another
oh
area.
no.
I have a question about the heating system.
Yeah.
So you said there's boilers somewhere.
So,
Did it come through there, or did it come through there, or did we use the stoves?
so the boiler heat was over in the prison. Over here, I think it was just the stoves. I don't know for certain,
they had
but
the heat from there. I don't think they had, because it would have been the kitchen. But that was pretty common just in homes where if you were heating your home, you would have used like the kitchen stove.
Right.
And you would have had the kitchen stove going. And that's why sometimes they had like the summer kitchens where they would set up their kitchen outside so they wouldn't heat up the house during the summer.
So what kind of heating do we have here? Just the,
You mean like right now today?
no, then.
Oh, okay.
For the,
Yeah,
just a
fireplace,
fireplace.
yeah.
is
So
it a regular fireplace or?
yeah,
Is it,
yep. So this has one of those like the decorative covers on it, which keep ash from blowing out when the wind blows and all that kind of stuff. But otherwise, this is just a standard fireplace. And then each of those rooms too has wood stoves in them too.
So
Yeah,
you
so
could
no
use
chimneys.
both if you needed to? Okay.
And the thing that's really nice about wood stoves is you can heat bricks or soapstone or something on
Yep.
it, and you can put that in your bed just before you get in, and it'll be warm enough that you can stay warm until 2 o'clock in the morning or so.
And you wake up real cold.
As long as somebody's stoking the fire in
Yeah,
the
you're
morning,
good.
you're all good.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that.
Don't ask
Yeah,
me how
absolutely.
I know that. I've never slept with a brick. Okay, so you guys have redecorated this in basic style. You've got your tall ceilings in here with the rail around the top, which I guess, what do you call that rail? A picture rail? Because they hung the pictures with a hook off of that rail so that they'd hang on the wall instead of poking holes in the wall.
See, now I'm learning something. Jessica was nodded and said yes, but I didn't know.
Oh, well,
I just figured it was
that's
trim.
That's what all that trim was for.
Yeah.
And they've got those hooks so that you could hang your pictures. And you've got them hung correctly. And yeah, that's plaster and lath more than likely.
Well, no, this is the stoned.
Oh, that is stone? Okay. Well, even with the plaster and lath, it was hard to hang your pictures, so they hung them off of that rail.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then we come into the living quarters on the what side?
North side.
North side. And in here we have a parlor stove that was probably, I'm gonna guess it was burning coal.
Yeah, I would imagine there was coal out here.
You're sitting really close to Carbon County, which had lots of coal at the time, Hannah, Medicine Bow, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure they were probably, and the steam train's coming through here. So they had to have had quite a source of coal. You've got, what kind of a bed do you call that? That's not,
Well, and that's why, yeah, because this would originally been the room that the guards were in.
okay.
So more than likely, especially in the 1870s, this would have been set up with probably multiple beds, maybe little side tables. But the reason I wanted to bring you into this room is because this is actually one of our collections items. This was a prisoner-built table that was, in addition to broom making, they also did furniture. And we have another wonderful example of prisoner-made furniture in the broom factory. But I just wanted to make sure you guys got to see this. This was a recent donation from a local community member. And so you can see like they used railroad ties for the base.
Okay.
And especially you probably saw over, because you said you went to the Ivinson.
We went to the Ivinson.
So you can probably see like the motifs and everything around the trim are very similar to the prisoner-made furniture that they have over there.
And the thing that amazes me most about this is the intricacy of the woodwork, the carving, and everything else. She said the prisoner that was building these was in prison for 2 years and 8 months. And
for a forged check.
Yeah.
for a forged check.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the furniture he made is absolutely beautiful. And I wouldn't, using the tools that he had to have been using at that time, I can't even fathom how fast he had to be working. He must have been the most bored person in the world and stayed up till midnight every night.
He was in
and got
prison.
up at 4 o'clock in the morning in order to get these accomplished, because these are just fabulous
Well,
pieces.
There is a chance that he was working, but he was probably also, maybe working with some other woodworkers, maybe someone who had basic woodworking knowledge to kind of have more of a workshop, because he could potentially train other inmates to do the same kind of work.
It's just amazing to me that this is beautiful.
Well, and the other thing too is to keep an eye on this piece, because when we show you the piece we have that we know was built by that inmate, like you'll see the difference between like this particular table and the table we have over there.
Well, and you see the difference between all of the furniture over at the Ivinsons too. I
Yeah,
mean,
just
every
the
piece
level
is.
of detail, like they're all gorgeous, but like the level of detail, and we have 2 examples actually over there.
Okay, so we know the guy could forge checks, just not really well. And we know that he could build furniture very, very well. What did he do when he got out? Is there any record of that?
I don't think we
don't know.
I think a
Yeah.
lot of the times once folks left the prison, it's usually something along the lines of he went back east, and then they lose the record of him.
But he didn't have a name that's synonymous with fine furniture building.
No.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, this stuff, the stuff I'm seeing beats things that you see in the antique store that that people pay thousands and thousands of dollars for. It's just beautiful.
And I feel like that's, unless we get really lucky and have a convict who gets very famous or something like that, or becomes like a pillar of the community. I know we have a exhibit to one of those folks over in the prison, which you'll get to see. But unless something like that happens, most of them just fall off the radar, like Jessica was saying. We don't really know.
Or someone just needs to like do a little bit more research and to really try to track them down to where they went.
Yeah.
I have another question. So the prisoner made this furniture. Where did the wood and the tools come from?
They would have been ordered by the lessee, because this would have been furniture that was made to sell.
Okay.
So yeah, so the responsibility of getting any of the materials or the tools that they needed fell on the lessee.
Okay. Very good information.
Good answer.
Was Sears Roebuck involved with ordering the tools?
They could have been. Yeah, I mean, that's
Possible,
like,
yeah.
if you couldn't get it in town, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, most of the stuff that they got, if they didn't make it here, it came in on the railroad one way or the other. Even if it was coming through somebody in town, the railroad was the primary way of getting stuff here. So
they had a really nice shop to work in.
I would imagine, was this all just made in the broom factory? You'd think
I believe
that's
so.
a good space for it.
I know there was some other work that was done. Like at one point, there was a cigar maker that was here that was up in the dining hall, is where they were set up. A lot of times when you all were at a Deer Lodge in Montana, they probably talked about the horsehair braiding. They did do some horsehair braiding here as well. So we have an example of that, and so that could have been done in someone's cell, since it was an individual who did that. You didn't need a team of people to do it. Candle making, they could have either done that outside or in the industry's building was primarily built so they could have a workshop during the winter as well. So yeah, they did a lot of different things here.
Very cool.
Cool. Okay, let's walk to the other end and see the other room.
Absolutely.
Now the kitchen, it had a wood cook stove in the upstairs kitchen and in the downstairs kitchen, or?
I'm not 100% sold on this being a kitchen, to be perfectly honest with you.
Okay.
So we have it displayed as a kitchen, but I still have to figure out, I almost wonder if this was like a secondary room for the warden, as opposed to like the kitchen, because all accounts that we have say that the kitchen was in the basement.
Okay.
So I almost wonder if this was just a secondary room, like if they had, at one point, the Marsh family, when they lived here, they had like a grown daughter who was living with them. So I don't think they all would have been in one room unless, she was on the other side. So those are, going back to the idea of like, we don't really have a good idea about what the family life was like here.
And I've wondered if maybe at times it was used as like a breakfast room or something like that. Like the historic governor's mansion over in Cheyenne, they have a room that was kind of their little breakfast nook where that's where they'd eat their meals. I've always wondered if it was something like that
And
too.
yeah, and then that room could have been more like a sitting room or a salon or something.
Yeah.
Now, were these floor vents, like what you've got, were those here originally, or was that put in as part of another heat system?
I'm gonna guess that was put in as part of the heat system, and more than likely when UW came in, they would have upgraded the heat, and then when it became a state site, they did a lot of work on the foundation.
Okay.
And they would have done work on the furnace as well.
Because I would have thought that if they had a wood cook stove in the basement, the heat would have traveled up, and they would have had vents maybe similar to those where the heat could travel up.
Yeah.
But there again, you lose it all when you've got these 10 and 12 foot high ceilings that all the heat stays up there, and we're only 6 foot tall, so we don't get it.
Yeah. Yep.
The Warden's house is a bit of a mystery to me.
Yeah.
We know more about the families than about the actual setup and use and how these families sort of operated on the site. Other than recently finding out information about the fact that the guards did live in the building, and that the family was more on this side, guards were more on that side, the summer kitchen, but other than that, there isn't a lot of information about.
And it's so hard to go back and find somebody still alive
Right?
from 1875.
If you find someone
It's-
on your travels,
It's a crying shame, right?
It really is.
right?
And then this room in here,
Yeah, this is.
this has a big parlor stove in it. That's a beautiful stove. Wow. A couple really nice armoires and the bed with the headboard, nice wood headboard. Again, none of it's original to the place, but it makes for a very nice display and gives people an idea of how it was probably set up.
And they would have sourced a lot of these items knowing that they wanted to interpret it around the 1890s.
Right. Okay. I see a set of spectacles over here. Well, I just was talking to the spectacle man downtown, Steve, and boy, that's an interesting place. I don't know if you guys have been in there or not, but
I have not.
You have not?
I've walked by it multiple times and have never gone in.
Yeah.
Well, next time you walk past it, let your shoes make a right-hand turn and go through that front door because you'll be amazed.
Yeah. It's always looked interesting to me.
It's once you get inside, and the man's quite interesting himself. He's got so many stories and so much Laramie history that he may actually have heard stories that might answer some of your questions here. I don't know if that's a fact or not, but his memorabilia collection, I think, is pretty good.
Cool.
Anyway, well, let's go ahead and head on over to the next building and see what's going on over there.
Absolutely. I'll close up behind you here.
Okay, we just walked from the warden's house over to the prison site. The wind's blowing 100 miles an hour here, and it's kind of chilly, to be right honest with you. But as we're coming over here, you get a really good view of the prison. It's a rock building that is made with kind of different brown and tan tone, red tone rocks. It's really a spectacular building for the time period in which it was built. 2-story, so it's tall. The roof lines are cool. And out front, they've got a paddy wagon that is a carriage. Is that an original, or that's a reproduction?
Yep, that's a reproduction too.
It just keeps the kids happy seeing a jail wagon.
And it's a great picture spot.
There you go. And so then we walk through the front doors. The first thing you notice is the door's a heavy metal door, and then the wall is probably 18 inches thick.
Yeah. I don't know the precise dimensions of it, but it's over a foot, well over a foot.
Well over a foot.
And I know that the thing I always like to point out, just as we walk in, is for a lot of people that was the entry into their home, right? For another however many years. It was this was a home for a lot of people, right? Obviously convicts, but also even the guards.
Right.
This was the place where you were going to be, and especially once they built the guards' quarters up there, upstairs. Then this was going to be a place where a lot of people lived. And I always like to bring that up as we go through that door, because for me it's so easy walking into a museum to see it as kind of a sterile, museum space, and to forget that it's a place where people lived and walked and breathed and experienced a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Something else that's interesting about this is that it has wood floors in it, and they look to be probably fir or pine. Usually when you walk into a prison, or prisons that I've walked into, it seems to be concrete floors. Seems like it'd be a little bit easier to dig through a pine floor because it's not really hardwood anyway.
The good, well, I guess the good news if you were trying to dig through things, or at least for the wood floor, is that if you'd escaped, we were well past that by the time they got to here. Over on the other side, so there's stone on one side, stone tile, and then this, the south cell block is concrete for the flooring.
And that was actually something I recently read, was that, so the north cell block was made out of brick,
Okay.
but the south cell block is steel. And they did that because people were digging through the brick.
Okay. Well, I would just think as long as you were building the warden's house, and you had hammers and drills and saws, that a wood floor would not be real conducive?
Conducive?
Conducive is the word. Conducive to keeping somebody stuck in a prison.
Yeah, well, the brick didn't do it either.
No, it didn't do a great job.
Well, they probably had some rock working tools, you know.
And the hole in the roof didn't help either for a couple of years there.
Just a long drop down.
Yeah, well, you'll see it when you're in there. Like, that was one of those things where we were like, yeah, there was a hole in the roof, and we're like, the guy must have jumped from the 3rd tier.
No.
And just, like, took his chances.
The way that they did that is they wrapped toilet paper together until they made a rope that was strong enough that they could come off. I learned that at the Montana State Prison.
Oh, gosh.
They had
Interesting.
toilet paper rope. I'm going, well, how did you weave that so that you didn't have the little squares that rip? You know? With my luck, I'd just go to the one point and all the squares would be lined up, and
Maybe they didn't have squares then.
maybe they didn't.
Well, I was going to say, so I know I've never seen any, but I have been curious about toilet paper from the time, because toilet paper was invented not long before the prison was made. Like, it had not been around for a terribly long time, if I remember correctly. So I do wonder what those early rolls of toilet paper looked like, and they may have been sturdier. Like, I don't know, but it's
John
possible.
Wayne toilet paper?
Maybe, yeah.
Rough and tough,
Rough and
doesn't
tough,
take flat mouth of anybody?
Yep, thereabouts.
These are the details we don't know.
We got questions about if people got
What's the toilet
splinters from
paper?
toilet paper. I don't know.
Well, now I know my grandma talks about the outhouse and the Sears catalog, so I don't know how prevalent toilet paper really even was at that point in time, but
Well, when my brother was in Germany, he wrote letters on the toilet paper. And it was this brown colored, like paper bag kind of color.
Yeah.
And it was kind of rough.
Yeah,
And he would write his letters on the toilet paper.
that's cool.
Yeah.
what else do you do while you're sitting there but write home?
Nothing.